Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Mythos Busters, where in just a few short days' time, we're going to be on the Holiday Road. Holiday Road.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Acceptable.
Guys, I didn't expect us to get another episode out before GenCon, but here it is for your ear holes, hopefully for your road trip pleasure. Joining me tonight, I'm Sean, of course, and joining me tonight are Nick.
Hello.
And Ian.
Hi.
How is the collective, guys?
Good. I was hoping we'd answer at the same time.
Yeah, so was I.
Operational.
That's kind of what I was going for. So tonight is just kind of a special little bonus PS little tagging at you for Gen Con type episode. We're going to talk about some news that we got because, for the love of God, we always complain about how we never get news on the right days. We podcast, we get a big article drop the next day. We actually got news on a day that we had a scheduled recording, and I attribute that to the fact that we didn't announce that it was scheduled until like 2 hours beforehand.
Yeah, it didn't activate the red button that's in Asmodee marketing that tells them to release, a few days afterwards.
The part of the deep net that's just there to spite us failed today. So we're going to talk a little bit about said news, and then we're just going to hop right into some Gen Con talk. So for those of you who are going, we're going to have, we're just going to cover what we're doing there. We're going to cover some tips for maybe some newbies who aren't going there, and possibly those of you who have been there before will divine some wisdom from our experience as well, hopefully. And then, of course, we'll round it out with just a tad of technical time. But before we do any of that, I want to catch up with you guys on what you've been playing, because it has been about a full 2 weeks. I have to hope that we've played a little bit in the meantime. Ian, how goeth team What Are We Doing? Or wait, what's your Lola and Calvin team called?
I don't remember the nickname I gave them now, but something suitably catastrophic. So I've been playing Boundary Beyond the latest pack a ton. I think I got all my campaigns through it. Feeling like I had to get that off my plate before Gen Con. It is a very tough scenario. Have you guys played it yet?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
I have my first campaign that I plan on rocking through it. It's in the middle of the Doom of Edsley right now.
Especially solo, it's really rough. And two-handed, it's a little better, but still rough. So I feel like Threads of Fate was a little like, oh, it's not that bad. And then Boundary the Beyond hit us again. But so Lola and Calvin, that was the latest one I played. So without spoiling anything, they were successful, ? Except for Lola got knocked out through an unfortunate turn of events. But Calvin ended up saving the day. I think things would have gone better if his fire axe would have showed up, or any of his weapons. He also has a baseball bat in the deck. It was just one of those games where they're in the bottom 10 cards, no matter how much you're drawing. I managed to draw it at the very end, and so I was evading everything, and fortunately, his between Fight or Flight and Key of East, he was hitting for 12, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
Something ridiculous for the last crucial turn. So unless I drew a tentacle, he was gonna hit things. So once he got his weapon, it was good.
I find that's a pretty common experience to playing a survivor that's meant to kill anything. Mm-hmm. One of the decks I'm bringing to Gen Con that I've been playing a fair amount recently is Yaudel Silas. And it's kind of geared toward being pretty heavy on the enemy management side. And dear God, when you just can't find that fire axe or baseball bat to save your life, it's like, I just can't function.
It's rough.
It's so tough. Nick, what have you been playing?
Nothing. As a true Arkham Horror fan, I have been too busy with Arkham Horror custom stuff. Started to pick up the ball on that a little bit, rather than actually playing Arkham, so.
Well, then I would surmise that the community stands to benefit from your lack of self-enjoyment.
That's the hope.
In the future. So we appreciate your sacrifice. For myself, I actually so I have to preface, I am super behind on Arkham because I'm giving Lord of the Rings its fair shake. It hasn't had a damn release in like how long was it, Ian? 9 months, 6 months?
I don't.
It was a really long damn time. So I've been giving the new Lord of the Rings box its due playtime. But what I did do before we get going for Gen Con and I actually make my standalone decks, I started up a new campaign. I decided that Mateo and Calvin were just a little bit swingier than I am made to endure. So I started a new campaign that was Mateo and Ursula, and they have been a really fun duo, oddly enough. They got through probably one of my best runs of Wilds. I have to tell you guys, man, something about Mystic Heroes, like Mystic cards have some of the splashiest, bombiest, slayer-iest effects of any of the cards out there. But their investigators, aside from Agnes, are so quietly cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you have Jim, you have Akachi, and you have Mateo, who I will say I was in the crunch turns of Wilds. I think I had maybe 1 or 2 Doom left to go, so I was fearing an Ancient Evils. Basically, the last thing I had to do was clear that last location. Ursula was going at it. She'd committed a deduction. I had field work activated. Milan was on the board. She was ready to clear these last 2 clues on that location. And she pulled a tentacle. And I'm like, oh! At the 11th hour, and I'm sitting here with my head in my hands going, God damn it. Just God damn it. Oh, wait! Mateo's a thing! And I hadn't popped his ability yet because I'm like, oh, I gotta save it. And I'm glad I did because Mateo popped his ability. We got all the clues and cleared it out, and it was such an awesome moment. So anyway, Mateo, very fun, very cool. Again, like Jim, like Akachi, just quietly powerful.
Yeah, I've said it before, but I was a bit down on him, and a lot of the community was not thinking he wasn't powerful, but that he was a bit vanilla. But I've had tons of fun with him, and actually, him and Silas are now probably my most successful campaign so far, which is surprising.
That sounds like a fun duo.
Yeah, because they don't strike me immediately as the power duo, but it's funny because Silas started out carrying the weight for the two of them, and now Silas is, not that he's not good, but he's kind of getting overshadowed by Mateo, because obviously Mystics have more powerful stuff to buy with XP.
Right.
And Mateo now has 2 seals of the Elder Sign and his own codex. So he has 3 free Elder Signs there, plus his own ability. And it's nice going into like the end of a scenario if you haven't used his ability yet. And I can just say, oh, even if I draw a tentacle here, it doesn't matter because Mateo can flip it.
And you can say tentacle out loud without worrying about summoning it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so freeing as just a player because you know, as soon as you start talking about the tentacle, it starts floating gently to the top of the bag.
It's the opposite of Jazz Mulligan.
Yes. It's made of helium.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, I look forward to. I'm getting through Boundary Beyond with this campaign specifically. This is going to be my blind play into Boundary Beyond because I have to have played that scenario at least once before we hit Gen Con. Yes. And then I'm going to make my standalone decks. So anyway, looking forward to that. So, guys, we got an article.
We did.
Let's go over it.
Okay. This is Shattered Eons. The 6th Mythos pack in the Forgotten Age cycle. We were all waiting for it to drop because it's been a while since we got an article, and they gave us one right before Gen Con. So the scenario itself, the depths of Yoth saw us descending a staircase into God knows what, and now we're figuring out what that is, which is it's kind of going to be another like laws of reality breaking type thing, time and space being no object. But in this case, it looks like...
As you do in the last Mythos pack.
Sure. Well, it looks like this one is distinguished from Lost in Time and Space, as these locations are actually actual real-world locations, or locations we would know from various myths and from different time periods. So the ones we have spoiled here are Plateau of Lang, which you will know if you've read any Lovecraft. That gets name dropped a few times, especially in Dreamlands. Atlantis is a location, and also the ruins of New York. So like a future post-apocalyptic New York. So I think that's a pretty cool...
future past apocalyptic New York. It's in a post-apocalyptic New York as imagined in the 1920s, which I find is just like,
yes.
It's like 3 layers of awesomeness.
Yep. I think Snake Plissken will show up at some point. But so I'm looking forward to that. There's a few things spoiled. I won't spoil the actual game text, but it looks like some cool stuff is going to be happening. Mm-hmm. So we did get 3 player cards spoiled as well. I will build up to the rogue one, so I give myself a break from talking. So let
me click a few times.
The other one is a Seeker and Survivor, which is neither of you guys. So I'll go ahead and give Vantage Point to Nick, because his favorite investigator has yellow.
Yay! So Vantage Point is a Seeker event. It costs 1 resource. It has an Intellect and an Agility skill icon. It is Insight traded. And its game text reads, Fast. Play after a location enters play or is revealed during an investigator's turn. Until the end of the active investigator's turn, that location gets -1 shroud. You may move 1 clue to that location from any other location. I like this. I like it a lot.
Go on.
Do I need to? So this is probably not one that you're going to do in your blind games too much. Maybe you'll have one, but this is the card that we would use in our Iron Man games for sure. This is when we know, like, the next location is a Shroud 4 or 5, or we know that, such and such investigator, Roland maybe, would need a clue or would benefit from having another clue or whatever on the location. This is something that, when you know the map, it gets that much more powerful. But when you're playing blindly and you're kind of discovering the scenario as you go, I don't think this one has the potential to be as great, but it could still be helpful. It's just you're not going to know when to save it for something or when to use it, that sort of thing. It's just going to be kind of a gut reaction.
Do you think at this point this is tech for anything specifically, or are you kind of coming at it from kind of general utility?
I'm just thinking general utility.
I've been trying to think about tech.
I can't think of an exact scenario that this would, save.
The best I got is to steal a clue off of Orn Library, an extracurricular activity. But honest to God, I don't think that's a terribly high priority for me in most campaigns.
No. I can't think of a specific scenario that this would be amazing in, or that it would like make or break the scenario.
Maze.
But I do think that this. I'm not going to say that it has no place, because I do think that, again, when you're going through and you want to optimize, it's a good card to include for at least first couple scenarios, and then there are better tools later on that you can, especially for Seeker, that you can upgrade into. That'll make clue getting more efficient or that sort of thing, or as far as adjusting shroud. But
I think, and I say this as a player who barely ever plays true solo, but I love this in true solo because it allows you to move into a new location, steal a clue off that 5 shroud location that you just noped out of 2 turns ago, and you've got a better shot at scoring it off of this location that you entered into. So
right.
I don't know. I feel like this is like a decent one of in a fair few Seeker decks, and where it works, it does cool things.
Yeah, I like the ability to take it from any location that has some difficult criteria for investigating that location. Like you mentioned Orn Library, but there's a lot of other ones that maybe they're having you use a test you don't like, or it punishes you for investigating that location. You can steal it off a victory point location easily. Sometimes there's scenarios where it doesn't even care how many clues you have. It just wants you to get clues off of a certain location. Mm-hmm. So anything like that. Yeah. I think one of is fair. Maybe not in every deck, but certain decks.
Right.
Anyone else feel this is a really ineffectual maze in the art? Because, like, even if you assume that the humans coming through the door in the distance are like a third of the height of the door,
That's still like chest high hedge maze.
you're still peering straight over all the hedges. It's like, dude, I can just meander straight over these. What are we doing here?
Just climbing over bushes. All right, our next card is taking a page out of the book of Sarah Connor and John Connor. It says, "We make our own fate." Sean, do you want to read Alter Fate?
There's no fate except we make for ourselves. So Alter Fate is a level 3 survivor. Well, it's an event, but it is also a spell, which is where I was going. It has one wild icon. It is spell and blessed trait, which means that Mateo can take it. Mm-hmm. Which is cool. Agnes, however, cannot.
Oh.
Slightly unfortunate. Anyway, fast. Play during any free action player window. Choose and discard from play a non-weakness treachery that is not attached to an elite enemy. Goodbye, Frozen in Fear. Mm-hmm. Goodbye, Voice of the Jungle. Goodbye, Lost in the Wilderness. Those are the ones that are fresh in my mind. Goodbye, Entombed.
Mm-hmm. It also hits ones that are attached to a location, so like Overgrowth, Locked Door. What's the annoying one in Carcosa that you have to like take a horror?
Spires!
Spires of Carcosa is another good one, yeah. I think it's Spirits
Of course,
is the one I'm thinking of.
If you discard Spires, the Doom stays on the location, though, doesn't it? Okay, well, that's a non-bo.
So
strike that from the record.
Unless you put
Pterodactyl
it in a grief deck.
Yeah, sure.
Right. We'll get there.
We were talking in Discord earlier, and we like throwing some uses back and forth, and it turns out this is a Bomb Dunwich card because it can get rid of Beyond the Veil.
Yes. Yes, it can.
And also in Undimensioned and Unseen, the Broods are not elite, so those annoying cards that boost their hit points or give them terror when you enter their location, they're gone with this card.
Preach.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that this isn't an exile card.
I mean, it's 3 XP.
Right,
which is not nothing.
That's true.
It is fast. This is really interesting to have. I wonder if there's going to be in the future just like an ultimate denial survivor deck where it's like you've got Tests of Will, you've got all the things that cancel and or heal damage or horror, and then you've got Alter Fate, which just kill treacheries. Just like, God, Survivor's so defensive. Which I feel like is saying the sky is blue, but it's still cool to see.
Yeah, it is 3 XP, but it's in the faction that doesn't have a ton of like expensive XP stuff, so I think that's fine, and it's only 1 cost to actually play it.
Right.
So
Survivor's yet to have a 4 XP cost card, right?
That's right. Wait.
Does anyone build a Lola deck without Survivor cards? Nope. Oh wait, you just talked about doing it last episode, didn't you, Ian? Because Calvin just stole them all?
Yeah, because I have Calvin.
Okay, valid.
But maybe you could build a Lola thing that is, and most people I think run Lola Clover, but maybe you do like a FU and counter deck Lola in multiplayer and run like Alter Fate and Logical Reasoning and just everything to like get rid of treacheries and heal players. I don't know.
I wonder if she could change rules enough to make that really work.
Yeah.
Guys, I need to revisit Lola. The card pool has expanded so much since the beginning of the Carcosa cycle.
She's so much
which is
fun.
the last time I built her. Nick, have you played her recently?
Not recently.
I know.
No.
Last time I'm aware of you playing her was Iron Man.
Yeah, after 8 scenarios in a row, I was pretty happy leaving her behind for a while. I am thinking about bringing a 30 or 40 experience Lola deck to GenCon, so...
Yes, please! I want to see that happen.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think Alter Fate's, maybe not everyone takes it. It's definitely a superb tech card, and probably worth keeping around if you don't know what's going to happen. At least 1 copy. Alright, so the final spoiled card is a green one.
I'll go ahead and read this one.
You've spent a lot of time leading up to this one.
Yeah. And now I feel like I'm on Borrowed Time is the name of this card. 1 cost, 3 XP asset, a will and an agility icon, ritual traded, exceptional, so it actually costs 6. And the action is place 1 resource on Borrowed Time as a click to a maximum of 3 clicks on Borrowed Time. Yes, you can actually say spend clicks in this game now.
I'm so freaking glad Scott's not here tonight.
Does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Forced, when your turn begins, remove all clicks from Borrowed Time. You may take that many additional actions this turn, and it takes up an arcane slot.
Interesting.
I'm still wrapping my head around this one, and I've had most of the day to think about it, but it's going to take me more time to think about it, I feel like.
I have a feeling that some scenarios early game, and I'm thinking solo, but some scenarios early game when you're able to give up maybe 1 action, and just the fact that you can bank it and then recall that action later seems really good to me. And in multiplayer, when you have other investigators who can cover the actions that you forfeited to this, early game, they can investigate or they can open up more locations or whatever while you're stocking up Borrowed Time. It feels like it's going to be even better. So I like it.
I feel like rogue decks nowadays, and again, kind of coming from the perspective of mostly multiplayer, rogue decks nowadays are all about I take 3 mediocre turns and then I bomb the board on my 4th turn, and that's what I do. So this just kind of plays into that because you're kind of banking actions for that big turn where you're again, Lola. If Lola were to take this with her will to survive, what's the last piece of that?
Ace in the hole.
Gold pocket watch? Ace in the hole, thank you. The extra actions one. Yeah, so this is kind of another way to get there. 6 XP though, guys. Let's talk about that for a quick second.
How many things, how often do you buy these exceptional cards? I buy Stick to the Plan just because it's so good in Guardian. It's almost an auto include. But, Rogue has how many exceptional cards now? 3?
The most. I know that.
Lucky Dice, Gold Pocket Watch. What am I forgetting? Is Obol exceptional?
No.
It is.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
it's only 1 XP,
right. So then, how many, you don't include multiples of those in your deck. You don't include Borrowed Time and Gold Pocket Watch, do you? Are you dropping 12 experience? You know what I mean? That seems...
Probably not, unless you're building Safina Time Wizard or something with Time Warp, which but I don't think. The thing is, I feel like I'm not anti this card yet until I have more time to think about it, but I feel like I'd like it more, except for that forced. Because if you could just bank an action here and there, I don't need this action, let me bank it, I don't need an action.
Right.
But this one actually, as soon as you have a click on it, next turn it's just going to go off and force you to use it, so...
I missed that.
I mean, can't you then just immediately put those clicks back on Borrowed Time? Assuming you don't have to take attack. Oh, you don't have to take attacks of opportunity because it doesn't produce it. So you can't bank more than 3 clicks.
Sure, yeah. So you could immediately use that extra action, I guess, to put it back on it.
That's a really interesting interaction.
It is.
I didn't read that, and then processing it after you said it. That's interesting. Okay, so Ian, have you played with Ace in the Hole?
Yes, and I love
How do you feel about Ace in the Hole compared to this? Compare them directly. I've never played with Ace in the Hole. Nick, you've played with it, but I've never seen you actually play it.
I've had it in my hand.
Ace in the Hole is fantastic. Obviously, it gives you a super turn. And even if I feel potentially a mistake for Ace in the Hole is I need to wait for the perfect turn. Sometimes you just use it, unless there's a specific point in the scenario where extra actions are not useful, just use it and burn through it. Unless there's specifically there's a big boss coming up or something that you need actions for. I kind of like the simplicity of Ace in the Hole compared to this thing. Just play it, get actions. The advantage here is obviously you can do it multiple times throughout a scenario. Yeah. I'm just wondering how often that's going to happen with this being a one of in your deck. and it's not like it's relic traded, so you could pull it out with a relevant card or something.
Right.
Now, just to clarify, when it says place a resource, that's from the token bank, right? Not pay a resource from your pool?
Correct.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I would imagine it would have spend one resource as part of its condition then.
That I assume that as well. I was just making sure I understand it right, because it wouldn't be the first time I knew like 80% of a card and was understanding the rest of it wrong. Interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'm just wondering because Golden Pocket Watch is 2 more XP, and it's just like, you know, you're not banking actions or anything. It's just straight up, especially in multiplayer, like 4-player have 12 actions, you know? So
I feel like this is one of those cards that's tough to evaluate in a vacuum. I feel like this is one you have to buy and see in action before you can really evaluate it.
Agreed.
At the very least, that arcane slot's not very contentious except for Safino, right?
That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's that.
Yep. Yeah, the only
Just
other thing
suggestion?
is suggestion.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, suggestion.
Which I have still yet to put in a deck. In a deck. Is it good for Safina? It's good for Safina.
I don't know. My wife has bought it a couple times, once with Jenny and once with Safina, and both times she's put it into play, but we've never really needed to use it, so...
Turns out Safina's pretty good at killing things with a few XP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely in the try list. Gonna have to see how it works out.
I expect a report back in 6 months.
Sure.
Whenever we get this pack. So, that's it for the news, right? I think technically we have another news article that dropped today. Are we going to push that to the next episode, though?
It is, I won't go in depth to it. Maybe we can go in depth next time. But it's basically Matt Newman will now be issuing us special designer challenges, which I like. Crazy scenarios we have to see whether we can take on. The one this time is with Undimensioned and Unseen. You can go there and read. It's called Then It Multiplied, and see if you want to take on that challenge. I won't go in depth except for to say it is hard. As a highlight, all 5 broods start in play. Whoa! Yeah.
I personally love this. I hope this style of article continues. I love this gauntlet being thrown down. Like, because normally I would never think to be like, oh, I want to go play Undimensioned and Unseen on hard, and hey, let's pretend all the sacrifices were spared and everything starts in play. Like, I would never think to do that, but the idea that it's out there now in the zeitgeist, and, you know, people who are looking for a challenge might go do it, and then we can compare notes. That's really cool.
It's a cool idea. I like it.
So if that's of interest to you, definitely go check out that article. It's on the FFG website, and I feel like maybe not post GenCon episode, because we got a lot going on between hither and thither, but the episode after that, we should all report back and try it at least once.
Yeah, good idea.
I also, one thing I really appreciated from that article was that the article told you what chaos bag to use for this standalone, and it confirmed every term that we've been using on this podcast. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
We've been using these terms without any official support, just because we assume we know what they mean, and now all of those are actually spelled out: skull, cultist, tablet, elder thing.
I'm pretty sure they were spelled out in the Learn to Play guide.
Are they really?
I'm pretty sure they were.
I always thought they were subbed for. All right, well, maybe I'm wrong. Either way, it was cool to have validation, because I remember at some point going like, "Man, these are never actually named." That might have just been in the core set, though.
Yeah, maybe that was before we even got product, when we were just speculating or something.
It's also entirely possible it was listed in the rules reference, and I just have never seen it. That's definitely a thing that could happen.
You're like, rules, and throw it over your shoulder.
It's funny that I'm the one that remembers that, because I still haven't opened a rule book for this game. Like, I sat down at Arkham Knights when it released, when we all played, and I was just like, they all know how to play, I'll just follow their lead.
Yes, we had the GenCon demo under our belts, so we were pros. Okay, so like I said, we'll round back on that one in a later episode because I feel like that's going to be a fun challenge to compare notes on. Because holy cow, that's a gauntlet! All 5 broods in play to begin.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, let's move into the meat of the episode, which tonight happens to be centered around GenCon. So, before we start out here, I just want to take one actually last chance to remind everyone of our events and things that we're going to be doing. So we've got, of course, the Mythos Busters event, which I'm not going to spring on Ian because I've heard it enough times now to remember when it is. It is Saturday at 1 p.m. Again, if you've got a ticket, great. Come and play. If you don't, still come and say hi. Hopefully, if we have room, we can squeeze extra people in. But either way, we'd be happy to see people. So we're Saturday, 1 p.m. And Ian, you're going to have to remind me where exactly.
Yeah, so I will post the location is already posted in our GenCon Discord channel. So if you're the day of trying to find it, it's there. And I will also
check the pins.
I will also post it on Facebook and pin that thing and Twitter. So it'll be everywhere. So you could, if you need to find it, but it is in Hall B, which is part of the huge game rooms where everyone is playing games. The tables are orange, and it is 36 to 42 in the orange tables.
Beautiful. And then, of course, after that, we've got GenCon After Dark, which is our co-op with Cardboard of the Rings. So if you feel like coming and having a nice drink and party game session, please do. It has just become the highlight of GenCon for me. Like, I'll step back for a second. The main reason I play games is the social aspect. Like, the mechanical stuff always interests me, but it's always been sitting down with a friend or friends and doing this thing that's always been at the core of it for me. So, After Dark, like, what did we have? Like 60, 70 people last year? It was pretty close.
Something like that.
It is just such a fun party. We've got so many different tables set up, playing lots of different party games, people just chit-chatting. Like, I remember our friend Dave, who came over from the UK last year, was just sitting down chatting with Caleb, you know, the designer of the game he plays. It's just a great place to be. So anyway, that's going to be at the Slippery Noodle, Saturday night, 8 p.m. to whenever. So if you want to show up late, show up late. We left at like 2 o'clock last time, so you're probably fine.
And there are special themed drinks. There's a beer flight with a couple of the drinks are themed with Lord of the Rings stuff. A couple are themed with Arkham stuff. There's going to be special Arkham-themed mixed drinks and shots as well. So, yeah.
Yep. Our buddy Patrick, who is our contact with the Slippery Noodle, has come up. I mean, he's been kind of the arbiter for all of the things we've done. The things we've done there. Wow, I'm having a real hard time with words tonight. But this year he went the extra mile and drew up like 2 or 3 extra shots for
nice.
After Dark, which are specifically Arkham themed, and then the last one is also kind of crosses over into Lord of the Rings. Like I mentioned last time, it's Unexpected Liquid Courage. You can't get better than that.
So you too can get lost in time and space.
Lost in Time and Space is one of the shots, and then Dimension Hops is the IPA on the beer flight. So, oh yeah, so that's that, guys. Let's talk about GenCon in general. First, so we've got every year we have a fair few people in both the Lord of the Rings community and the Arkham community who are hitting GenCon for the first time because this stuff just continues to grow. It's like the video game industry 10 years ago. It's kind of crazy. What tips would you give to noobs about GenCon? First, about kind of attending events, planning events, logistics-wise.
Be prepared for big crowds.
Yes, accurate.
No, the one piece of advice, because like last year was my first year, and I remember I spent weeks, months leading up to it, poring over blog articles and stuff like that on how to prepare for GenCon. And the thing that I got the most, like that I heard the most from these different articles, were don't, like, it's your knee-jerk reaction is gonna sign up for a bunch of events, and a lot of them said don't sign up for back-to-back events. Sign up for one or two, and then just buy a bunch of general tickets, and then that way, if there's other events that you want to get into, you can just go. If you have general tickets or if you decide you're not going to go to an event, that's fine. You're just out some general tickets. It's not that big of a deal. And I didn't buy any general tickets last time. I just signed up for the Arkham events and that was it. And I went, and that was totally fine because it just, the whole time just flew by. So even though you have 3 days, like, it's not going to feel like 3 days. It's going to feel like a day and a half.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the biggest thing I would counsel a noob on, is that it seems like you've got this really long weekend, chock full of hours where things can be scheduled. God damn if it doesn't go by in just a blink.
Right.
So the main piece of advice that I would have given to newbies is to not overschedule yourself. But obviously at this point, everyone's already chosen their events, so that's kind of lame advice. But what I will say is if you weren't able to get into events that you wanted to get into, still try to show up 15, 20 minutes early with generic tickets equal to the cost of the event. You might still scrape in. Mm-hmm. And that goes for Arkham in addition to other things. The other thing is I would just expect time to slip. Have snacks if you're going to skip a meal. Have a water bottle. Like, I plan on having my water bottle with me at all times. It's amazing. The indie summer heat, even in the convention center, can dehydrate you in a hurry. And it's kind of remarkable when you're playing, especially if you're kind of into the heavier games like Arkham, if you're playing anything else, just the brain burn that can come just from doing that anyway. And then if you're also dehydrated, it gets intense. So bring water, bring some like meal replacement protein, Cliff, Z bars, whatever it is you eat. Have some of those as a backup, because there are times where you'd be like, okay, I'm sitting down for a 10 a.m. event. All of a sudden it's 1:30 and you're like, I kind of missed lunch, didn't I? So having things is good.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have said some of this already while my Discord was acting up, but yeah, I think the big thing is just because time does slip by, just knowing in advance like what's important to you, what are you trying to get out of Gen Con, and just like basically there's not enough time to do everything even in a 4-day con, so it's what is it that you are really want to get out of it, because you're going to have to prioritize certain things at some point. There may even be events you're scheduled for that you skip out on. I've done that before, like oh, I had an event scheduled but I'm going to skip out to hang out with my friends and eat because yeah, one of my priorities for the con is hanging out with people that I never get to see. So but maybe you're different and maybe you get a thrill out of, I don't know, a tournament, or you're really just there to play as much as you can, then, obviously you're going to prioritize that.
I think that's kind of one of the tricky things about Gen Con, is figuring out exactly what you're there for, because you can go for the spectacle of it and just wander and walk into booths as you see them. You can go for playing. Like, I know people who will sit down. God, I remember my friend Etienne a couple years ago sat down and played 12 hours straight of a Netrunner tournament.
Oh my gosh.
At Gen Con.
Yeah.
And to me, who's again primarily there for the social aspect, that just seems crazy. But like, I fully respect that people are there for that. So that's a great place to go. But the point is, just be cognizant of what you're there for and prioritize accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
I would advise people to go to meals at odd times, because
yes,
I can guarantee you that between like 11:30 and 1, like that's when the exhibit hall is going to empty and everyone's going to go get lunch. So if you could eat like an early like lunch type meal around like 10 a.m. and then eat again at like 3, like that would probably be your best bet. Like, go at off times. There's still going to be a lot of people because that's just the nature of it, but it's a difference between like a couple hundred and the vast majority of people who are there. So
yeah.
And I think the other thing to be aware of is that the restaurants and eateries that are closest to the event center are very obviously going to be the ones that are most busy. So if you really don't want to put up with a line, you're probably going to have to either walk a few blocks or just catch a Lyft or an Uber somewhere else.
Yeah, don't even bother trying to get Starbucks or coffee or something because those lines are always insane.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that the beer garden does exist, and that in the past few years has had a pretty decent variety of food trucks.
Yes.
There's been that one stir fry giant wok tent where like that's been my saving grace on like day 2, day 3 of Gen Con, where all I've had is like beer and fried food. I'm like, roughage, please, greens, anything. So yeah, I like stagger up to the stir fry hut and make sure I get a cup. So I definitely recommend trying that out. I have no idea does anyone know what the beer is for this year's Gen Con?
Oh, I heard it mentioned on another podcast, but I can't remember what it was called.
Looking it up.
It's like a pretty generic type name, if I remember correctly. Like generic fantasy sci-fi type thing. I can't remember.
Describing every year's Gen Con beer.
Well, they had like, what was it? It was like a Wrath of Khan themed one.
Froth of Khan.
Froth of Khan, yeah. That was, it's named after a certain movie. This one is like, what is it?
You forgave that one because it was Star Trek themed, don't lie.
That is fair. That is fair. If they were all Star Trek themed, I would be happy.
Last year was what? Grog the Golden?
It was the gold one that I heard from most people was relatively underwhelming.
It was, I drank it happily, but I wasn't blown away.
Yeah.
Froth of Khan was a coffee-infused golden ale, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was really sad that... Because the year afterward, they had, like, barrel-aged Froth of Khan that was really expensive, but totally worth it. And then, like, by day 2, that was sold out, too, so that made me sad.
Okay, it's called Everlasting Gamer.
Yeah, I just found it, yep.
See, I told you it was generic, right?
Am I... I was about to say, like, am I...
as it gets.
Yeah.
Am I missing the reference there? That seems kind of low effort for Gen Con punny type ales.
Well, this was actually the first year I can remember where they didn't put it to a vote. They said, we'll pick the name, and then I think they let people vote on the flavor instead.
Okay, that's interesting. Qui-Gon gin and tonic. I would drink that.
Yeah.
Darth Malt. That one's better.
That's way better.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So anyway, so kind of moving on. Any other tips and tricks you'd give to the newbies? Let's turn it specifically focused on Arkham and possibly other co-op LCGs and that kind of preparation or tips.
I know we talked about it last episode, but Arkham specifically, bring 2 to 3 investigator decks and maybe pick a scenario if you want and bring cards for that. But ultimately, if you're just going to the events and that's it, bring 3 investigator decks to me seems like a good number, because it's very unlikely that you'll probably get, other players will have one of them, but it's very unlikely that, you'll be matched up with people who have the same 3 investigators that you brought. So,
yeah. I also suggest bringing a small sideboard of cards. It doesn't have to be super huge. It could be like 10 cards or whatnot, but specifically for any uniques you have in your decks. So if you don't know who you're playing with and you happen to have like Big Man on
Milan Christopher
or Milan Christopher, like there's a few different investigators who can take that. So bring 2 copies of another ally that could possibly go in your deck instead in case you need to swap out. So you're not fighting over Milan.
I'm sure it will happen, but I haven't seen it happen yet. There will be a Roland player who is arguing to keep Milan over, like, Daisy. That will happen somewhere in the Arkham world.
It won't be Nick.
And we will all be behind the Roland player, right?
Okay, maybe Daisy was a bad excuse. Daisy doesn't need it as much.
And Guardian needs help with money, so...
Yeah. Okay, so talking about building your decks. So my approach, and just this is just kind of having all my bases covered. I've got a Flex Akachi.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a Kluver Norman, and a kind of monster enemy focused Silas. So my approach was to have a monster killer, a Kluver, and a Flex.
That's what I'm doing too.
Did you guys take a similar approach?
That's exactly what I'm doing. I have one that's enemy focused, one that's progression focused, and one that's literally just me going like, what would be fun?
Yeah, same here. I think that's the best way to go. So I have a Kluver Ursula. I have a Flex 39 XP Skids who can do both, and then
You're playing that, by the way. You don't have a choice now.
Nice. It's super just designed to pump out the action. So, and then a Killer Yorick is the third deck. So.
I'm reprising my deck from last year with my 49 experience Roland. This time I have, instead of going with a Roland that can kind of do everything, I decided to focus super hard on getting out shotgun and keeping it in play and getting the most damage from it every single time. So that's what that Roland deck is all about.
Key cards for that combo?
What's that?
What are your key cards for that combo?
Well prepared, venturer, prepared for the worst, just literally...
Ammunition?
Yeah, extra ammo. It's literally just stuff to stack tokens on it, keep it in play, and to dig it out initially, so... no stone unturned.
It's been a long time since I've used shotgun. Is that a +5 to that attack?
Yes, yes, I believe so. Now I can't even remember it. Oh my god. I set up the deck like 2 weeks ago and haven't looked at it since. I haven't decided on my Kluver yet. I'm leaning towards Daisy because she's still one of my favorite Seekers. I just really like her.
Well, I was gonna go Daisy and I went Norman because I thought you were going Daisy, so you better go Daisy.
And then...
I wanted to play Daisy with protective incantations because what is she using the arcane slots for?
Exactly. So I think Daisy would be a lot of fun. And then for my fun deck, I'm thinking I was going to do Super Controlled Jim because I did Jim. I've done Jim in the past and I really like him. But the three that I brought last year were Roland, Daisy, and Jim. So now I'm thinking I might do a high experience Lola instead.
Well, with your shotgun build, if I play Skids, I'll be able to help you out with double or nothing. So.
Awesome.
Gonna get those 10, 15 damage shots off.
Black Lion Chest in the chat. I agree. Everyone should bring a YOLO Calvin deck because that I feel like we should... Okay, so here's the thing. Maybe we make this a thing for next listener event so people can actually prepare. But we should have a 4-player Calvin deck where we Calvin scenario where we eschew the unique rule for this one scenario just to see how 4 Calvins handle a scenario.
Oh god. Not well. Because
I still want to see it though.
I would like to see it too. Oh my god, because Calvin is such a weird beast to build for. Like, it's like you almost have to... I don't even know. I'm not even going to say it. Like, that would be fun, though. I'm down for it.
Okay, there we go.
Or we could...
I expected you to immediately go, yep, we're doing it.
Yeah, no, totally.
We could find the jankiest combination of investigators possible, like Lola, Calvin, Safina, and who would be the 4th one in that mix?
Yeah, Carolyn.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting.
Oh man, you could build a Grief Carolyn deck just for that and just heal all of Calvin's horror.
Or you could build a Carolyn deck that heals a bunch of horror and has, medical text so she heals other damage too, but
yeah, it's the Jank squad. With their powers combined, they summon Captain Jank.
All right, so returning to kind of general Gen Con tips. Nick, you have in the show notes here, con bag.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate.
Well, it's always a good idea to have a bag with you. I mean, something to carry.
Oh!
Yeah.
What did you think?
Okay, I read way too far into that.
What?
You need your duct tape, your robe.
Be sure to build a bag out of the swag that you pick up at the con.
No. You think that's a joke, but you do one shot at AEG and you don't need any other bags for the rest of the con.
Oh, that thing is huge, yeah. I have one of their bags from past years and I use that thing to move.
Pro tip. My buddy Brian got one from like 2 years ago, and every time we have a game night, that's what he brings his 16 games we're not going to play in.
Surprisingly durable. Oh, there's a few items that I put in my con bag that maybe aren't like obvious. One that I found very useful is one of those portable phone chargers, because you're going to be out from the break of dawn till late at night if you're like most people at Gen Con, and your phone's going to die, so it's helpful to have
And the
those.
signal is squeezed, so your phone is going to be struggling anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it dies more quickly, and you kind of need your phone to coordinate with people most of the time. So yeah, that's super helpful. And hand sanitizer, because I got very sick one year. I got completely on my deathbed and had to miss the whole, I think it was Saturday of the con. So
Question.
Since that year, I am paranoid, always washing my hands, and if I can't wash my hands, then I got sanitizer there.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Was that year you got sick before or after you had a child in daycare?
That is a good question. I'm trying to remember.
I ask because you guys can both agree. Nick, you scoffed, but having a child in daycare is like just having a constant contagion vector living in your house.
Yeah. Well, this past year I got sick how many times? Like 5 or 6 times within 3 months. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So yeah,
I think your
items.
immune system goes about as far from ages 2 to 3 of your own child as it did from 2 to 3 of your own life.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So, I'm trying to think what other things about Gen Con that I would have wanted to have known the first few times I did it. I think a lot of people undervalue the logistics of just needing food. So I'll return to that for a quick second. So definitely bring your emergency snacks for those moments when you don't want or cannot leave your table to have food. But beyond that, like Nick said, it's probably a good idea to try to go on off-peak hours, but even then expect to wait. There's the Steak and Shake right next to the event center is always just so hopping.
Yeah, even late at night.
Yes.
Especially late
And there's
at night.
Trying to think of our other regular haunts. There's a Granite City like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
Which was pretty solid.
Was that where we went last year and it was like empty? There was one place we went for an early lunch last year and there was like nobody there.
Yeah, that was Granite City. Normally they're kind of a dinner place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that's one of my favorite places to go. And there's actually not many times when I can think of it being that packed. I think it is because usually we always end up going there around lunchtime or off lunchtime.
Yeah, if you can get yourself on just a slightly off rhythm, like if you're having breakfast at 10 or 11 and lunch at like 3 or 4, you're probably in good shape.
Yeah. We should talk about the actual convention hall. There are some tips that I've learned over time. One is the FFG line is crazy on Thursday morning, of course.
Pro tip.
Avoid
So-
FFG if you can.
Yeah, unless there's something that you really want to get that's going to sell out, like in this year, that's like X-Wing 2nd edition. Then if you're not in that and you're just, I want the latest Arkham pack or whatever, then it might sell out, but more than likely it won't. And sometimes they bring more stock. Basically, yeah, I'm just saying avoid it if you can.
Yeah.
For your own sanity.
It was surprising how, and granted they released L5R last year, but it was surprising how long that line was last year and how slowly it moved. Like, it didn't seem like it ever reduced at all.
Yeah, I used to stand in it every year because I was like, I want my Lord of the Rings stuff, before Arkham wasn't even a thing. But it was so freeing last year. Just, I'm not going in that line, and I have 2 hours of my life to do with whatever I
Exactly. I remember talking to Sean and Brandon and Brian about it beforehand, and both Brandon and Sean were like, oh yeah, like it's just you just do it because that's where the stuff is and you want to get that. And I'm like, really? Like, why? Like 2 to 3 hours? No, like I'm okay waiting a month to get whatever, I'd rather be out and moving around. So
yeah. And it's just generally, there's Gen Con exclusive stuff at different booths, and those are, in my experience, those seem like those go within the first 15 to 30 minutes. So you're probably not going to get them all unless you have friends. So if there's something specific you want, choose one and go for it. Other than that, if you're not interested in those, like, don't go in Thursday morning. Like, a lot of times go like the last 30 minutes of Thursday before they close the hall, and you can sneak into a lot of places without a huge line and then buy whatever stuff you want to buy. That would be my big advice. Pick the off times, not just for food, but for the convention hall as well.
Also, if you're like me and you use Dragon Shield standard clears as your sleeve of choice, bring some with you. And actually, if you're particular about the type of sleeve you use, bring them with you. Don't expect to... Because I expected to just pick up extra standard clear Dragon Shields at the con, and there weren't... Like, all the booths I went to, they had the clear mats, but they didn't have standard clear. And even the clear mats sold out.
You know why, Nick?
Why?
Because competitive players ruin everything.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't use clears in competitive play.
The same thing happened to me last year, Nick. I used clears for Arkham, and I went to like 3 or 4 different booths with Dragon Shields, and they just did not exist. So.
Yeah, I remember following both of you guys through your struggle. It was a sad moment. Like I felt for you guys. Like I had my 600 Ultra Pro clears in my backpack, just ready to go, and I was like, "Aw, guys, it's like my second least favorite first world problem." There's not enough sleeves.
It is fun finding random demos to play if you can. Sometimes demos because a lot of times the demos you really want are going to take a long time to get into. So sometimes you got to be open to trying these off demos. I've done that a few times, or I don't know what this game is, but I'll try it.
Dude, and sometimes like the ones that you're just like, all right, well, I want to stop walking for 2 seconds. Let's just try this game that we happen to have stopped by. Like those end up being the games that you're like, oh god, everyone who just played that now wants to buy it.
Yeah.
E.g. or I.E. I can't remember what would be useful in this situation, but Cobra Paw was one that we just stopped and played last year, and now I own that and bring it out like every other time someone wants to play a game, just because it's such a fun little filler.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some of the best stories will come from some of the worst demo experiences. Like with
accurate
the Dungeons and Dragons cooperative deck building game, and how
Dragonfire.
I was going to say Firestorm, but yeah.
Zailfire.
So I'm hoping that it's weird to say that I'm hoping we get another experience like that, because that was a pretty shitty experience.
We're going to be like waiting it and trying to see who the worst demo is. Can we have them? Oh man.
I'll be interested to see this year if FFG has decided not to blow their wad the week beforehand, because if you remember, was it last year or the year before, where it just felt like every big announcement that they had, they announced ahead of GenCon?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the week before, so...
Yeah,
we'll see.
Me and Nick were talking about that before recording a little bit. That I was surprised this week because the week before Gen Con there was at least 1 or 2 announcements each day for a new game, and it's been radio silence except for their usual stuff. So either A, they don't have stuff to announce, not as much stuff, or B, they decided to take a different approach and actually announce stuff at the in-flight report.
All right.
Which they've moved to Wednesday night!
Yeah.
If we can talk about that asinine decision for a quick second.
Yeah. It used to be on Friday, right? Friday afternoon, I think.
Yeah, it used to be like Friday at like noon, fairly consistently, which, I mean, I guess I have to throw my hands up a little bit, because even the last year I was like, no, In-Flight Report has just been boring sales figures and X-Wing fanboyism for an hour, and then you do the Q&A where people just spend 20 minutes asking the very questions that FFG has just finished telling them that they cannot answer.
Oh god, I just had a horrible thought. They moved it to Wednesday night so that they can announce new releases that are going to be at the Thursday morning.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
so the line is going to be even bigger.
That's exactly what I was afraid of, is that they're going to announce something like the minute before that I really, really want, and there is not a game in this world that would make me sit through the FFG line on Thursday at Gen Con nowadays.
What would bring you to that line, hypothetically?
What if, like, Return...
Mass Effect LCG is the only thing that would make me stand in that line.
Oh god, I need a moment now.
You can keep dreaming.
It's not happening, but that's the only thing on that list that would make me put up with the Thursday morning line.
This is when they announce that they're gonna release a new game of Wars.
That would be Nick camping out.
I would
Okay, yeah, no. I actually will put a second thing on that list. If they revive the Decipher engine for either Wars or the Star Wars license, I would stand in that line as well.
Wars.
I know where you sit.
Star Wars has Destiny.
Yeah, but
I know it's a bad game, but
I don't. Well, no, it's a fine game. I just don't like it as much now as I did when it came out.
Here, roll these giant dice for your card game.
Mine would be a co-op Star Trek LCG. I would be breaking down the doors. Let's see what else. Something Lord of the Rings related that's actually good and not just a cheap dice game.
Honestly, I'm such an IP whore that if it was anything I was interested in, I would seriously, like, even if they're just like, we're releasing a World of Warcraft miniatures game, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll go in line for that. So
until you see the Thursday morning line.
Well, yeah.
What's nice though,
thing we talked about is that I would consider it, but it wouldn't go further.
Well, one thing that's nice about what FFG has done in the past couple of years is that once the line forms and hits the point where the fire marshal cuts it off for safety reasons, once that happens, FFG has employees go through the line starting at the beginning, and they have basically reservation cards for the different products that are on pre-order or, that are hot or that they expect to be hot. So they'll go through and basically give these cards to the people in order of the line to allocate them. So if you go pop in line and you really want a specific thing, if you're able to get there early and get that card, you don't necessarily have to wait it out in line, because then you can go back at a later, hopefully less busy time, turn in the card, still get the thing. But I hate the Thursday morning rush so much.
Yeah. Let's just hope for our sakes then that they announce just boring things at the
yes.
We got the Warhammer license back.
Oh, God.
I'd be like, great, see you next year, FFG.
Scott would be weeping in the corner, like, no, I gave it up already.
Now, introducing Star Wars Pogs collectible game.
Sean would be in line for that.
A PCG.
I would play that. PCG.
PCG. That's amazing. If they announced that you got a free Kyle Katarn Slammer, then I would be in line with it.
Nice.
I'm Gray!
And they have little sound chips in them, so it plays Duel of the Fates as you hit something.
Totally sounds like something FFG would do.
Okay, so guys, let's talk about what we're actually planning on doing. So the first thing, so the reason we're sharing this info is actually so that anyone who has an interest or who has events that coordinate with us can come say hi, come play with us, whatever it happens to be. We want to meet people in the community is ultimately what this is all about. Mm-hmm. So if you hear something that we're listing here that you're able to make and feel like making, make it, because we want to say hi. Wednesday is when at least Nick and I will be getting in. Ian, I can't confirm for sure your arrival time.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm actually getting in pretty early, like 4 p.m. on Wednesday or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will be ideally we will be in the beer garden for the tapping party. Last year it broke my heart to miss it because we just had like weird schedules and like 3 different hotels to drop people off at. But that issue should be completely non-applicable this year. So anyway, we're going to be at the tapping party on Wednesday night. And then if anyone has to wade through the will call line late into the evening, that's what I'll be doing. But I can't speak for the other two.
If you're looking for a follow, I don't have plans. So I'll be wandering.
Oh, okay. So you'll be in the will call line with me?
Sure.
Yes!
Yeah, I do not have plans either. So. My plan involves beer and listening to... they actually have an actual band there this year, Local H, that I used to listen to back in the day. So,
yeah, okay. So you and my friend Brandon were kind of freaking out about that. Like give us like the TLDR, like the elevator pitch on that band. Like what's the deal and why are they excited, or why are we excited for them?
That's a hard one if you haven't heard their music. But the thing that was always most distinctive to me about them is that they kind of pioneered the two-person band before White Stripes did it, where one person was doing both the bass and the guitar, and then they had the drummer, of course. So that was, I remember when they first came out, I was like, oh, I've never seen that before. I'm sure maybe there's someone in music who did that before, but that was the first big rock act that I can remember doing that.
Well, there's doing it, and then there's doing it in front of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so tapping parties Wednesday night. I mean, I feel like Wednesday night's pretty just fast and loose for us. Like, we're going to do the tapping party. I'm going to hit will call. Whenever I get out of will call, we're probably just going to go to another place to get more drinks.
Yep.
So again, I will remind everyone that we have a GenCon 2018 channel in our Discord. If you have not yet joined it, please do. That's how we're going to coordinate. We're going to do our best, at least, to kind of throw out there, like, hey, we're going here. You know, if there's other people who can join, do that. Thursday, if we haven't been convinced by the in-flight report and the information contained therein to wade through the FFG line, Thursday morning's open for me, so I very much look forward to wandering the dealer hall, as is my custom. You guys?
That's about the same for me. We have our Arkham event that afternoon. That morning, I got to pick up my my scenarios from FFG, but yeah, otherwise it's pretty much just browse the dealer hall.
Yep, and then we have our... Shoot, what is the sarcophagus of mystery? The beneath the pyramids? What is the...
I forgot now. I will look it up
Egypt scenario.
Yeah, you laugh! You don't know it either, bitch. What is it? I've looked at it like 3 separate times.
Eternal Slumber.
Eternal Slumber, thank you.
I like the red coffin juice, though.
Yes, exactly.
The red coffin juice of Nyarlathotep.
Yes. So anyway, we're going to be doing that at the 4 p.m. event. So if you are also going to be there, feel free to come say hi, play beside us. We'll heckle and cheer along as is necessary. Mm-hmm. Friday, I don't have anything in the morning. Do you guys have anything in the morning?
I don't have anything at all Friday.
Ooh, that's a lie. I have something in the morning. Friday morning, my friend Brandon and I are going to be doing CrossFit at one of the CrossFit gyms in Indy. We haven't completely figured out where yet. So this is kind of a yearly tradition where we absolutely destroy ourselves before we go continue to sit down and play board games and eat a bunch of fried food.
I should come and just watch you guys while eating ice cream.
Yes. I would love to have those pictures. If you want to do that, I am in full support.
What time in the morning do you go?
Well, it's yet to be determined, but it's usually been like around 8 or 9.
Oh, I would probably
so we'd leave the hotel by like 7:30.
I would probably still be awake at that time. So
it's not obscene. Like I'm kind of a night owl, and I am terrible at early mornings, and I've been able to make it work every year. So
I would say if you can make it work, I can definitely make it work.
Exactly.
I'm so used to waking up early now that's actually like sleeping in late for me.
So anyway, if for some reason someone listening to this is like, dude, I'm into fitness, I want to go have a CrossFit, I'll have one of those. Come contact us either in the Discord. You can just message directly at me, Ataru /, or you can contact us through the Facebook page. Just message us there. I get all of those as well. And I'll let you know the time and place that we're doing it. So Friday morning, if that's of interest, feel free to come join.
I feel like that Venn diagram, that center circle is very small.
I know.
It's just Brandon and Sean.
It's like a discrete point
exactly.
on the circle. It's not even part of the area of the circle.
The borders are just touching.
So anyway, that's my Friday morning. After that, though, Friday, if you are also a fan of Lord of the Rings, we're going to be hitting up, at least casually, I don't have a ticket for it, but I'm going to be bombing in on the Cardboard of the Rings event at 1 p.m. on Friday. Ian, I assume same for you.
Yep.
As a leader in the Lord of the Rings community.
Yeah, a bit of a lapsed leader, but a leader nonetheless.
So then, the other thing I wanted to mention is a completely non-official, casual, completely social meetup. My friend Brian and I have been talking about doing karaoke at GenCon for the past several years, and this year we are finally going to pull the damn trigger on it. So Friday night, we're going to go to the Monkey's Tail in
Yes.
Indianapolis. It is not, from what I hear, I actually haven't looked at it on the maps myself, but from what I hear, it's not in walking distance of the convention, so you'd be looking at, a taxi, an Uber, a Lyft, whatever it happens to be. But if that's something you're interested in doing, coming and having some drinks, playing some, or singing some karaoke, or listening to some karaoke, as it happens to be, that's going to be Friday night, and the Monkey's Tail starts karaoke at 10 p.m. according to their website. So that's when we plan on being there. And it's just going to be silliness. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
That. Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Saturday. What do we have Saturday? Of course, we have our Mythos Busters event, as previously mentioned, at 1 p.m.
That whole thing.
And as previously mentioned, After Dark, 8 p.m., Slippery Noodle. Be there.
Mm-hmm. And this year,
guys,
I'm actually not leaving early on Sunday, so I can actually hit the convention hall for a little bit on Sunday.
Yeah, that's been the thing the past couple of years. Like, I've always, as we kind of filter through the different sections of After Dark, I'm always looking at Ian going like, oh man, that poor bastard's gotta trek to the airport after this.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've headed straight from After Dark to the airport, which is rough.
Yeah, I mean, I had it really good last year. Basically, I was chauffeured by a friend of ours, Justin, who borrowed his parents' conversion van, which is plush and roomy and very soft. Like, there's just like all the fixtures in it are just covered in upholstery. It's amazing.
It was like traveling in your living room.
Yes. We watched. We didn't actually watch any movies on the way down, but we ended up watching a couple on the way back: Euro Trip and John Wick.
Yeah. Yes,
which was a fantastic mix.
Yeah.
So anyway, this year I look forward to hopefully not getting as rowdy at After Dark, although I still do plan to get rowdy.
Yeah.
Last year I was a wreck on Sunday morning.
Last year was kind of a benchmark year, though, with the whole changing of hands with Cardboard of the Rings and all that.
Yeah.
So.
That's true. Although the thing is, I mean, this year, hopefully After Dark, now that it's a full co-op event, will hopefully still be even bigger than it was the year before.
Oh, yes, definitely.
If it gets too much bigger, we're going to have to look at pushing into additional space, so I look forward to exploring that possibility if we start stretching the limits of what we can fit downstairs. But downstairs is really damn roomy,
yes,
so
there was a lot.
It's going to be a thing if we bust it.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it. Don't feel too crowded.
Yes.
I always love, though, how there's the random people from upstairs who find their way, like, oh, what's in the basement?
Right.
And then it's
a bunch of nerds. I'm back.
Yeah.
Come down to a bunch of guys slapping each other's arms and yelling high five at each other. And...
Yeah.
Although I will say, guys, this is just a little bit of an unnecessary humble brag, but the first year we did After Dark, I walked into the Slippery Noodle, Saturday night, GenCon's kind of wrapping up. In the upstairs, I saw Z from the Dice Tower, who is my favorite Dice Tower host, sitting just having a drink. And I'm like, oh, all right. And we got the private party downstairs. Here we go.
And you didn't invite him?
Well, I just like, I get weird around people that I admire. I just feel like I shouldn't bother them.
Yeah. It's fair.
I don't know. Although, I would never want anyone who listens to the podcast and it was like, hey, I'd ever like to hang out with those guys. Don't think that way. We also want to hang out with you.
Yes.
To come to After Dark.
Yep.
All right. So before we get to Scott's contribution, shall we call it, to the Gen Con conversation. The Gen Conversation.
There you go.
Oh, I totally missed. I
He's
missed the
got
note
there
on that one. I'm sorry. I failed you all. Anything else to say before we wrap it up?
My plan is hopefully, and I'll probably end up doing this Friday because that's when all the Lord of the Rings stuff is going on, but I do actually want to get over to the Lucas Oil Stadium because I hear that the RP scene has kind of moved there as of
That's
last
my understanding
year.
as well.
So I kind of want to head over there and at least peruse it a little bit because I was only in the exhibit hall in the dealers. Like, I was only in the ICC last year, so I kind of want to see how the RP scene looks over at the Lucas Oil Stadium. So I'll probably do that Friday.
Did you end up signing up for any role-playing stuff?
No.
Okay.
I just thinking.
I know you had been flirting with it. So I wasn't sure.
I'm a big flirt. I know how. Yeah, I would love to.
Know.
I would love to play more RP games. At GenCon, but the fact that last year went by so quick and all I did was Arkham, that's just kind of reinforcing the idea that it's like, no, be more of like a fly on the wall, like float around and see what's going on, and don't commit yourself to anything too big. Besides, my hope is that in another, next year's Gen Con, I might have a big RP event to schedule. So we'll see.
Stay tuned.
Cool. Yeah, I've been signed up for RP events, 3 different Gen Cons, and I've ended up skipping out on all of them. It's just not, I really want to do it because it seems fun, and I don't get to RP that much at home, but in the heat of Gen Con, it just doesn't happen.
Dude, that's such a thing. I have the best intentions. In my rational brain, I think I'd love to play a bunch of games this year with everyone that I don't get to see very often. But then you get to Gen Con and it's okay, well, you spend a half hour just walking from the entrance of the convention center getting to the area where your event is. You set up, you play a little bit of a game. Mealtime, turns out, so you need to go eat, and then you're already into your next event. It's just amazing how quickly it slips away.
Yep. I am, one of the fun things I do like about Gen Con is the dead CCG table and having a chance to play dead CCGs. So I'm considering bringing a couple of my Middle-earth CCG decks. So if anyone is interested in trying
I would
that,
be down to try that finally.
Me too.
I feel like this year, since I only have Mythos Busters to worry about, and I just all I have to do is show up late to the Cardboard of the Rings event, and that's all I'm responsible for. I feel like I will actually, for the first time, be available to play more games. So we're planning a Thrones Melee, and I would love to play Middle Earth CCG at some point, because Ian, you're not the only friend I have who has told me that it's awesome.
Yes.
I'm trying to think what else we should. Okay, so here's the thing I want us to do, and you guys can let me know if you're interested. I feel like we should, all 3 of us and whoever else is interested, buy a starter deck from one of the dead games at the dead game table.
Wars.
That doesn't count. We know how to play Wars.
Okay, no. Here we go. Because I posited this last year, and then nobody ended up biting on it, so I didn't. But they have the wrestling card game there, and they had
Raw!
And I saw Ric Flair, and I was like, oh boy, I really want to get
your
that.
boy!
Yeah.
Woo!
That's what we should do, is we should pick up Raw Deal. Yes, thank you, Delarp Guy. Thank you, Josh. We should pick up starter decks for Raw Deal.
I love Dead CCG, so I'm totally down for that. No matter what it is. Yeah.
Okay, so Thursday, sometime early afternoon, the 3 of us will go and decide what game it is. We'll post it in the Gen Con chat, and anyone who's interested in picking up and playing a game of a dead CCG with us,
take it back to
post
the
in the Gen Con chat.
Well, and that being said, I will bring 2 Wars decks with me, and Mr. Trench, or Casey, Mr. Trench in our Discord, accidentally, when he was ordering Wars cards, because I got him into the game, he accidentally ordered a box of starter decks. So he has said that he has starter decks to just give out. So that's another game that I would be very happy to teach more people how to play that.
I know you would. Oh my god, there was an actual Vince McMahon deck.
Yep.
Josh is mentioning in the Discord.
Oh yeah. They had everybody. It was sick.
That is amazing.
I was such an edgelord when I was 13. All I would have wanted to play was Kane and Undertaker at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe there's a Mankind deck that you just get wrecked.
With Mr. Sacco.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Casey, Rey Mysterio, man. At least at the time I was watching, I felt like he was underrated. I feel like right after I stopped watching, all of a sudden everyone was talking about Rey Mysterio. I know that sounds really hipster, but I feel like if you're going to be hipster about anything, pro wrestling's probably a pretty neutral thing to be hipster about. I was also a big fan of Wrath before he, this is going back to WCW days, before he became Brian, whatever he was. Wrath was like my favorite dude for a while, if anyone. Wrath and Glacier. Anyone remember Glacier? If you remember Glacier, I want to hear about it, because Glacier was a fun wrestler.
Dude, you were my main avenue for wrestling information, and I don't even remember Glacier.
I just remember we played the N64 wrestling games a fair amount in our formative years.
Yeah, and it's really funny because back then I was always like, this is fake, why do you like this? I don't like it. And nowadays I can appreciate the whole kayfabe.
And now we're like we know it's fake. And
that's
like,
the point.
This is like the like basest masculine soap opera. That's all wrestling is. Black Lion Chest, truth. No Mercy on N64 is still the best wrestling game that's ever been made.
So
100% agree.
Old wrestling game.
To steer the conversation back to GenCon.
Why must we?
Casey asked me in chat if I was going to bring The Thing, the board game. I hadn't considered it, but now that he brought it up, I do say that that's a game that you really can't.
That's not a bad one for After Dark.
No, and that's a game that doesn't really work with fewer than 5 people. And I think that we could get full 8-player games consistently.
Easy,
so,
100%.
I think
especially at After Dark.
I think I just decided to bring it. So,
fair enough.
Awesome. I want to play it again.
I'll look forward to playing it.
I'll bring The Thing, Wars, and Arkham, and that will be my game selection.
My quiver is not going to have enough space this year because I got to fit Arkham decks, Lord of the Rings decks, actually bring scenarios this year, and 2 Middle Earth CCG decks. I think it'll fit. That was definitely a good purchase. If people don't know what I'm talking about, quiver is a type of card case that has a handy strap. So it's a good one. It's a good investment if you're gonna go to Gen Con or you constantly have to carry cards around.
I have a quiver as well, and that's what I'll be bringing.
Yes,
I have a backpack.
The only thing is you are required by law to touch tips anytime you meet someone else with a quiver. So
that's why I have a backpack.
Otherwise, your cards just burst into flames.
I went like the ultimate nerd route last time. The quiver has kind of 2 ways you can hold it. It has like a little handle that you just hook onto one end of it. So basically, it's like a big rectangular card case. I think it's supposed to hold like 900 sleeved cards, something like that, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's about the size of like your BCW half shoebox, 1 lane type storage solutions, if you know what I'm talking about. But last year I decided to just do the one-handed instead of the shoulder strap, because then I just strapped it to the lower strap of my backpack, so it was just hanging off like a little hip quiver. Oh man. I was owning that nerdiness, and I didn't care because it was so nice to just have it there, but not there. So pro tip for your quivers: it's pretty flexible on how you wear it.
Yeah,
just FYI.
And if you play multiple card games like I do, I like bringing colored dice instead of having to bring tokens for Arkham and for Lord of the Rings and whatever else. I can just use 1 set of dice to cover tokens for all those games.
100%. That's exactly what I do too. I have a little like card-sized deck box full of dice. It's got green, blue, black, and red. And that covers everything I need for Lord of the Rings and everything I need for Arkham. And it's... I don't know, like, I love the idea of bringing all my fancy tokens to Gen Con, but then when I think about pulling out these tokens that I really love and care about in that crowded room where just, like, everyone's shoulder to elbow at the tables and things get knocked off fairly frequently, like, it gives me a little bit of a panic attack, so...
I wouldn't do that. I'll be relying on you guys for tokens for Arkham. I'm not going to bring any, so...
Yeah. Oh, that's true. We didn't even talk about that people are unsure whether they need to bring their own chaos bag. I think last year, I think none of us brought it, but then the games we played, someone else had it, because I was just relying on using an app on my phone if need be.
Yep.
Yes, same here.
But a lot of times, other people you play with will have will have a chaos bag with you. So yeah, I mean, you can bring it. Obviously, you'll have to bring a lot of your tokens because you don't know what the chaos bag composition is going to be for the special Arkham event, which is kind of why I like just using an app. That's the thing about Gen Con is we talked about stuff to bring, but even more important is what not to bring.
Yes.
You are going to be carrying that pack all day, so just bring what you absolutely need to and nothing else. The first couple of Gen Cons, my back was dying because I was overloading it with stuff, and that's why I figured out these little tricks to avoid doing that.
I suppose I should also say, Arkham related as well. If anyone is interested, because I've had a couple people ask, I will be bringing the first 3 scenarios of my Winter Winds campaign. Those will be the scenarios that I'm bringing for Arkham. So if anybody wants to try those, I will have those on me probably the whole time.
So what? Contact you in the Gen Con channel or at the listener event.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that'll be a prime time to play those if someone's interested.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I would kind of expound on what Ian said and kind of bring it beyond Arkham. I feel like anywhere you can become a minimalist at Gen Con, you should do so. Because anything that you don't have to bring with you, like, man, it doesn't seem like it's that much to just be walking around for a few hours, during the waking hours of the day. But it's on concrete, like you're maneuvering around the big crowds and doing like the Assassin's Creed shoulder bumps here and there and everywhere, and like it's surprisingly taxing how much it is. Like just to like one extra deck box's worth in your backpack is a strain on your back. So wherever you can eliminate some weight, do so.
And because you're going to add crap to it, too, throughout the day.
Yes!
You're probably going to buy a game at some point, and or maybe you see some cool tokens or dice, and you buy those, so, yeah.
As you do.
Yep.
That's honestly one of the biggest things I would recommend people do. Like, if you've just got a couple free hours, and you're like, well, I what do? I would just peruse the dealer hall, specifically looking for peripherals to games you already own.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure.
Of course, as well, looking for those kind of random demos that end up being awesome stories too. But you have to go through a fair few duds before you hit one that you can tell a story about. But anyway, looking for peripherals on games, like the action trackers that I generally use are Draw Labs tokens that, as far as I've been aware from people who have talked about them since then, like they aren't on sale in the US outside of when they make it to Gen Con. Like you have to buy them from Greece or something like that. So you can kind of find just little upgrades and little things like that you can't find elsewhere at Gen Con. So just explore and just be open to, I guess, new upgrades, new experiences.
Especially because
I don't know.
Lovecraft and Cthulhu are kind of popular with nerds, so there's so many random Cthulhu Lovecraft themed stuff you can find throughout the convention hall.
So, boys, let's put a pin in this one.
Mm-hmm.
We've already talked a little bit about what we're doing for the event specifically. If someone is coming into Gen Con, they weren't able to get into official Arkham event, they weren't able to get into our event, what do you do to play Arkham? What advice would you give?
Well, if you're on this Discord, then you would ping the GenCon 2018 channel and just ask who's available to play Arkham.
Tangentially, if you're on the Discord and listening to this, and you have not yet muted the GenCon 2018 channel because you're not going to be at GenCon and are thusly not interested in any, attendant messages related to GenCon, go mute that channel now because it's about to get real busy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, look at the Vince McMahon.
I'm reading it right now!
Superstar value of 4. What does that mean? Is that good?
You can pack Raw and SmackDown cards.
I was like, what does that mean, pack 'em?
I love how that's operational game text.
Yeah, you could. I'm so excited for Dead CCG time.
Yes. I would
a
be
foreign FO or foreign object maneuver. Oh man.
Oh, I think this is the new tradition I'm the most excited for. Is
Yeah.
doing CCG games.
Yeah. Pick one out. I don't think there's anything specific for Arkham. Yeah, just use that channel. Coordinate a game, bring a scenario. Here's one thing to think about if because this happened to us last year where we bought Carcosa and we're like, oh, let's play Carcosa. Oh, we don't have any encounter sets. So at this point, we don't know if we're going to have an upcoming pack there. But if you're the kind of person where if it's there, you're really going to want to buy it and play it, then you're probably going to have to bring your core encounter sets and Forgotten Age encounter sets to be safe. So just think about that.
Tip.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap this one up with Scott's contribution to our conversation here. He wasn't obviously not able to join us tonight, but nonetheless, he has prepared a gem for the community here. I don't even know if I want to be the one to intro this, but let's go ahead and do it. So, if you are going to an Arkham event and you've yet to decide what kind of deck you want to bring, though, given that this is probably not going to be released until the day or two before GenCon, chances are you've already decided. But if you haven't, and you feel like something a little different, I would go and check out Scott's deck on Arkham DB, which is right now called OMG, Not You Too, Safina. Which is the follow-up to to Scott's deck. Seriously, what the fuck, Jenny? So Safina, oh my god, and looking at this deck that Scott shared with us last night before we started talking about it, looking at this, it's just kind of amazing. The griefing potential that exists within Arkham Horror at the moment. Because, okay, so comparing it to Lord of the Rings as a card game is very interactive between the players. So, like, if you have an attachment in your hand in Lord of the Rings, you can generally play that attachment on one of your partner's heroes or characters as long as they're eligible. Like, I feel like Arkham is very, you play your own area, and occasionally you have supporting effects if you're playing Guardian. So it's kind of interesting, because when you then go to Lord of the Rings to go like, oh, which cards can alternately be used to grief your compatriots, it's not that far to stretch, because a lot of the things interact with players and characters that are anywhere on the board. But Arkham's not that case, so to go through this deck list that Scott has expertly crafted here and see all of the different things that can be used to just fuck with your compatriots, it's kind of astounding. So Safina, Grief Queen, I would recommend anyone go out there and look at this deck list, but guys, let's each pick our own personal highlight from this deck list. I'll go first, and that's Knuckle Duster.
Oh, you took mine!
It's so, like, before Scott posted this list, I never even thought about this.
Right.
So here's what's fun. So if you're trying to grief your partners in the game, you play down Knuckle Duster in Safina, and you can fight an enemy engaged with a partner. You're probably going to miss because Safina has 2 combat. But guess what? That attack still does 2 damage. And you know what? The enemy also gains Retaliate. So not only are you going to deal 2 damage very likely to your partner, but then the enemy is going to attack back. And it's, God. I just couldn't believe that could actually be used for that purpose. It's never something I even looked at Knuckle Duster and thought. Any highlights you guys would call out? I mean, he's got like 10 different things in here explaining how cards that are normally awesome can be used to just absolutely destroy your partners.
I think one of my favorites that's new to Safina from his Jenny build is Time Warp. I just love the idea because you can play it on another investigator that they pull off some awesome move like drawing an Elder Sign or hitting that shotgun blast, and then you just Time Warp it and make them redo it.
Now you gotta prove it!
Oh man.
Or so the other thing that he has in there for that specific purpose is double or nothing. So you can just, like, not only can you time warp to make him redo it, being like, oh, now do it at twice the difficulty. Sorry, not sorry.
I really like, it's simple, but I really like the fine clothes, parlay a story asset that's needed at a specific location, then just run away with it. Because it's so simple, but that's exactly like, when I think of griefing, that's exactly what I think of, is some bullshit like that.
Or just fine close it and then immediately assign any incoming damaging horror to the story asset.
And as always, gold pocket watches.
Right. Yeah.
When you just skip the investigator phase. No
and I know we've talked about it before, but I mean, for God's sake, with Safina, just the griefing potential is so insane with Painted World. Because you can copy any of these events that can be used for just terrible purposes. So I love the idea of delving too deep.
Yes!
And then also you handle this one of the cards that you pull off the delve too deep to someone else. It's just...
Well, and Painted Worlding delve too deep so that you don't even get the experience from it.
Yes!
Or you could...
I've yet... Go ahead.
You could delve too deep and it brings out an enemy and then you think on your feet. Like, see you later.
Just pop away.
We've yet to confirm this with Scott. I have to assume he'd be amenable for some point at Arkham Knights. But at Arkham Knights, it has to be a thing where 3 people sit down with Scott with this deck and try to complete the Gathering. And if they can complete the Gathering, they win.
Oh, that's funny.
The not-so-hidden traitor.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, if someone's sitting here at the table and legitimately doing this, like, how do you stop them? Arkham does not provide you ways to stop your partners from doing things. So.
You literally, like, you just have to play hard progression. Like, you need 3 Seekers or something, and you just all have to just hoover up clues like crazy.
Dynamite blast them.
Yeah, there you go.
Everyone have dynamite blast. Nuke them from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yes, the Scorched Earth protocol. So everyone pencil it in for Friday night at Arkham Knights if we're not doing something more compelling. The Scott Grief Challenge. Try to complete the Gathering with his Griefina deck. Okay. So moving on from there, guys, let's wrap this up with a little bit of technical time. Ian, what you been up to?
Actually, not a whole bunch. Because I've been playing Arkham so much, and the other part of it is like when it's getting close to GenCon, then I have to spend time on like all this other real life stuff, so I can clear a room for that. But I think the only thing is that I can point to is I've talked about how I've been rediscovering my love for point-and-click adventures. So I've continued to play I Have No Mouth a bit. I have 2 more characters to do. And then I've also been playing this one Broken Sword, which has a very cool kind of like 90s animation style almost to it. Cool. And it's basically in Paris, and you're investigating some murder, secret society, Templars type thing. But it's been a lot of fun so far in the ways you can like switch between characters, and sometimes you won't have the right object that you need, but you'll find it later. And unlike some point-and-click adventures, it's a little bit more... I hate to say open world because it's not like that, but you can kind of travel around a bit and go back to places you've been to try to solve puzzles.
A retraceable map is usually a good mechanic, as long as it's well implemented. So I for my part, I've started I Have No Mouth. My problem was I started it when I was taking my daughter to tennis lessons, and it was really sunny out. So like I'm sitting there with my phone with the brightness just blasted, and even with that, with the sun I was dealing with, I couldn't see anything. And the first character I picked to play through, like they just start in a dark room where you're supposed to explore a little bit, and I'm like, I just can't even play this right now. So anyway, I've started it. I mean to pick it up. It seems really interesting. The preamble was quite interesting.
Right.
Now I'm a little confused. Is this like a remake of a game that it actually existed in the 90s?
Used to be a PC game originally.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. It really plays that way. So that was kind of my assumption. Okay. So I'm looking forward to that. I suppose the other thing that bears mentioning is that I've kind of gotten back into a pretty big Thrones kick.
Oh.
So when I went on vacation, we bought the audiobook for Harry Potter, which I've been reading the Harry Potter series with my daughter for the past 4 years, just kind of slowly working our way through the books. We bought the audiobook of the book we were on for our road trip, and we pounded through 20 hours of that book between the road trip and then at the cabin we were staying at night when everyone was in, we huddled around our little Bluetooth audio like a 1950s family around the radio listening to Harry Potter. It was really cool. So anyway, I got on a big audiobook kick from that, and we downloaded Game of Thrones. And then, of course, through listening to the book, I'm like, oh my god, I must experience it. So, of course, I went back to play the game.
That sparked the conversation. Okay.
Yes. So I felt like the exposition was worth it there. Anyway, so I haven't bought a Game of Thrones pack in a solid 9 months.
Oh, I'd imagine they've had a few releases since then.
They've had a few, because the problem is, shortly after last year's GenCon, I bought L5R thinking, okay, so many of the people that I played Thrones with have jumped ship for L5R, and, Valar Morghulis is in the meta now, and I have just this irrational hate for that card. Even though I've had so many people explain to me in eloquent ways what it does, why it functions, how it exists, I just hate it, and I can't shake that.
Seems totally appropriate given the source material and the nature of, the game. But
I agree!
But I also don't care for Game of Thrones, the LCG, so I'm probably not the person to listen to.
So anyway, I've gotten on a big Thrones kick. I'm probably going to end up catching up on all the packs I've missed, which is going to be super friggin' painful, but we'll get there. And been kind of diving back into the card game at that point. I bought one pack out of all the ones that I missed, and that's because I am primarily a Lannister and Stark player, and there was one pack that had a really juicy Stark card and a really juicy Lannister card. Got my wife playing again. So anyway, I'm going to be bringing a couple melee decks for playing Thrones at GenCon. So I know, Ian, you built one today. I'm going to assume it's orange.
I built my first Game of Thrones deck in a year, probably, since last GenCon. It is actually not orange this time. I was tempted to do Martell, but I was like, I always play a Martell every single time because they're my favorite house in the books and also in the card game. But I was like, I have all these cards I never do anything with.
Just not in the show.
Yeah, not in the show. That was a travesty. But so I was like, yeah, I'll play something different. So I was tempted to go Targaryen, burn, but I decided not to completely antagonize Sean. So instead, I'm going to be playing Tyrell, which is actually Martell's mortal enemies, but despite that fact, I actually find a lot of their cards interesting and fun. So I'm going to try that out. But yeah, even looking through the card, because I've kept up with the purchases mostly because I was like, well, I can't cancel my subscription before the Martell box comes out.
I wish I had thought about that.
So then it came out, and then I was like, I might as well just keep it. It's that, thing where you're like, I might want to play it more in the future. But looking through the cards, I was like, just realizing kind of the game is in a pretty cool place with all the different deck types. It seems like each house now actually has 3 or 4 viable decks that they can build, where when I was actually playing actively, it was in the early life of the game when it was each house has one deck and some of the houses are way better than others.
Sean, what two are you bringing? Lannister and Stark? Are those the two decks you're bringing?
So I have one. Okay, so what I have assembled right now is because I'm playing Joust with my wife a little bit back and forth. So I have a pure Lannister deck and a pure Stark deck. The main deck I'm going to be playing specifically for melee is a House Stark Banner of the Lion. So it is literally a Stark Lannister deck. And then I'll probably bring my Tyrell deck because Tyrell is just really well positioned to do things in melee. It turns out. Which is why I assume Ian was like, oh, hey, let's play Tyrell.
Yep.
I was going to say, if one of you brings a Greyjoy deck, then I will sit down and play Melee. I'll probably bitch about it the whole time, but I do love
history would meet that out.
I do love Greyjoy. Like, I like how they play. So
I will bring you my Greyjoy deck. It is quite fun and interesting to play. The one thing I will say is my friend Brian, who has kind of joined in this renaissance of Game of Thrones with me, because he actually completely separately, before we had any conversations, he also started back into the audiobooks of the first part of the series, because he just accepted a new job and he has a new commute, so he's got audiobooks. But anyway, so it's just like random happenstance that we both got back into the books and thusly got back into the game at the same time. His favorite deck to play is it's one of those things where he keeps adding adjectives to the name.
Well, when we were playing it last year, it was the Freyjoys. Yeah, it's with House so it's Frey and the Greyjoys.
Yep, so it's like the deck to honor the glorious triumph of the House Freyjoy or something like that. Like every time he makes he makes edits to that deck, he adds something to the deck title.
He did a good job antagonizing us and me specifically last year, because the Freys are so hateable in the books, and then you combine them with Greyjoy, which can be so hateable in the game. It's a good troll mixture.
Yeah, I'll have that Greyjoy deck, Nick, so if you feel like playing it.
And I think if it comes down to it between Brian and I, he's usually pretty cooperative about backing down and trying something different, so I think I'll be okay.
I've always wanted to build a wildling-focused deck, so I might experiment with that too. We'll see how much time I have.
Yeah, so we plan on playing a little bit of Melee at GenCon. So if you also play Thrones, again, let us know in the GenCon chat, and we hopefully can get a fair few people lined up for maybe a couple of, like, 2 group melees or whatever it happens to be. So if you play Thrones, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we for Tentacle time? Nick?
Yay!
What you up to?
I was like, he's gonna forget me.
No, I got you, fam.
I'll keep it relatively short, I guess, compared to what I normally how I normally talk. But really, the only stuff that has been occupying my time outside of work and family stuff and getting ready for Gen Con has been role playing, which I'm super happy that is now so prevalent in my gaming life, because I had a really long drought there for a while where I barely got any RP. But we had our session 0 of our Roll20 Lord of the Rings campaign, or Middle-earth campaign. So the 9 player characters, or the 9 players, got together with me on Roll20 earlier this week. We finalized all the player characters. We have 6 humans, 1 elf, 1 dwarf, and 1 hobbit. And we are playing in the...
6 humans? Is that where we really ended up?
6 humans, yeah. I was surprised. I thought for sure we'd have more elves, but nope, we have one
literally
elf.
The only reason I chose a dwarf was because you said, oh, no one's picked a dwarf yet. I'm like, alright,
well, and we're playing in the region of Erebor and the Kingdom of Dale, so one of my favorite areas in all of Middle-earth. And we're literally starting exactly 1 year after the fall of Sauron. So it's going to be, it's not quite 4th Age, but it's definitely not the War of the Ring. So it's a really interesting time period. A lot of it's kind of in flux. I've been doing a lot of map prep. I've been doing a lot of, like enemy prep and just kind of workshopping the campaign. And I'm really looking forward to that. Damn it, Casey. Casey was looking at the map of Middle-earth that I had posted on Roll20, and he's like, is there really a place called a Wetwang? And yes, there is. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to that campaign. And then also, I posted out to Facebook, which is how I've primarily gotten a hold of people about this, but about my West Marches D&D campaign that I will be starting up probably later this year, probably November-ish. But
give us a short description of what West March's format is.
West Marches,
for those who are uninitiated, because I was one of those until I read your Facebook post.
Right. So the West Marches, and I know I posted a video in our Discord last episode, but a West Marches game is, assuming you know what regular tabletop role-playing is, West Marches takes a large group of people, 10, 20 plus people total, They usually have some sort of online communication hub like Facebook group or Discord or an email list. And how it works is you have one or maybe more dungeon masters who are in charge of the world, and then everyone else is a player, and they make their characters on their own, and then they look at an incomplete world map of the campaign world, and players will decide what they want to explore. They'll kind of make their own groups and say like, hey, I really want to check out these ruins, who wants to go with me? They'll form a group, they'll find a time and place that work for them, then they'll contact the DM and say, are you available for this day? And they'll schedule a game. So it's completely player-led as far as scheduling games. And the whole idea behind it is that you're having rotating groups of players, so that sometimes you have a new player in with you, sometimes you're playing with all new people, and the players are filling out the world map as they play. So it's all about exploration, and because there's rotating players, it really feels like there's this big living world, because players will come into groups and sessions with stories of, like, this is what happened when we checked out this temple, and this is what happened when, my character died at, at this ruined tower, and blah, blah, blah. And so it really kind of generates this living, breathing world simply by the fact that you have so many players. So I originally sent out, I asked people who would be interested in it. I got over 20 responses, a number of which, I think 5 or 6, said they'd be willing to even run games, which is awesome. So after GenCon, I'm planning to reach out to the people who want to run games, and we will, start to talk about world building and who's interested in building the world. Should it be just me? Are the other DMs interested in having a hand in that? And yeah, and if you can hear my voice right now, you are welcome to reach out to me on Discord. Just message me or at me. Then and talk about getting involved, because some of it will be taking place in person, but some of it will also be taking place online via Roll20. Now that I definitely feel like I have a pretty strong idea of how Roll20 works, I would be happy to run games online, and I have other DMs who want to run games online as well. So. And like I said, I said earlier that I would like to, in a year, have a big RP event at GenCon. That's kind of my goal for this West Marches campaign, is eventually in 2019 or maybe 2020, is to have like a World of Warcraft style raid encounter, like session at GenCon, where we take as many of the players that are in our normal West Marches group, get together at GenCon for, 6 hours and run through like the big final boss of this campaign world. I think that'd be really fun. But that's really ambitious, and that's also way down the road. So, we're getting there. But yeah.
But if that's the thing that appeals to you, join now.
Yes,
ground
definitely.
level.
Like I said, at me on Discord. If you happen to be friends with me on Facebook, go ahead and message me on Facebook. We will get in touch. And like I said, I'll be reaching out to the potential DMs after GenCon to see who wants to help with world building. And that's it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, guys, we're going to have a lot of things happen between now and the next time we record an episode. So everyone, if you haven't already, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Ian's been fairly active on our Twitter recently, as I've surmised. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at Mythos Busters, and I'll probably be especially active during GenCon, so if you want to follow along with whatever Arkham Horror news comes out, and I won't spoil anything about the scenario because that's bad form, but if you want to keep up with the news at GenCon, you should follow our Twitter.
And we'll definitely do our best to stay abreast of any big announcements, like if they announce that the next cycle is in Mountains of Madness. You'll hear it from us really quickly. And again, use our Discord. We'll see you guys at the event. Guys, oh god, it's GenCon, and I cannot believe we're like 4 days away from being...
Hold on to your butts.
That's insane to me. It's insane to me. This will be my 5th year of GenCon, and it seems like every year it still sneaks up earlier than I expected to. One would think I'd learn at some point.
I have now reached the point where I've lost track of how many Gen Cons it's been for me, so I'm not sure.
I expect that to happen in the next year or two. But for the meantime, we'll see everyone who's going to Gen Con at Gen Con, and we'll talk to everyone else afterward, where we will be bringing you not live reports. There'll definitely be after reports.
I was like, don't commit to anything, Sean.
Yes, I know. We'll be talking about our Gen Con experiences, and I think after that we'll be... And, oh yeah, quick reminder for anyone who still happens to be listening, with all 5 of you, if our post Gen Con episode is going to be a community roundup, so if you maintain yourself or are aware of a part of the Arkham community, a content producer in the Arkham community who is doing a podcast, YouTube channel, blog... Help me out, guys. What other formats do people exist in?
I think you covered it.
Yeah.
All right. If any of those things, or even if you're just like a prolific review writer on ArkhamDB, let us know, and we'll prop you on the next episode of Mythos Busters that happens after Gen Con episode. So guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 42 of Mythos Busters. We will catch all y'all after Gen Con, or at it, if that happens to be the case. Bye!